Welcome to the Time Management Podcast with me, your host, Abigail Barnes. I'm a productivity coach, global speaker, time management author, and award-winning entrepreneur on a mission to share the 888 formula with the world and to remind you that it's your time. Leave it to me to bring you new time management tips, tricks, tools, and strategies, to introduce you to guests, research, and case studies from around the world, and to give you a simple 5-step process you can follow to uplevel your productivity, achieve your goals, and create a life that exceeds your wildest dreams. I'm so excited that you're here, so let's get started. Welcome to the show. I am so excited to be joined today by the incredible Shawn Lemon. Welcome to the show, Shawn.
Thank you, Abigail. It's good to be here.
Who is Shawn Lemon in a nutshell? Let's dive straight in.
I'm a dad of a 2.5-year-old. I've been married for almost 13 years now, and I've got a passion for digital organization and helping people to untangle the mess in their lives, whether it's email or files or to-do lists and managing passwords. I love detangling messes and helping people get more productive so that they can do what they love. I also love making pottery and riding motorcycles.
Wow, I'm so excited to unpack all of this in the conversation today. Let's start with, what was your relationship like with time in your early days?
Well, if we're talking really early days, I was in a household that it seemed like we were always late. And I could not wait to get my own driver's license because I was waiting for my brother all the time. And so I wanted to be on time for things. Time's always been one of those things that it's like we set an expectation with someone. And so it's really important to meet. And yet I'm one of those people that always tries to pack in too much and get too much done, which is why my family has always been late and why it's one of those things that I strive towards being more efficient with. So that's one of the things that I've had to learn over the years is try not to pack too much in because it's very stressful when you're trying to hit the minute on the dot.
And is this how you got into the work that you do today? Walk us through the journey to becoming the digital organizer.
I'd say it started with my dad making us read manuals as a kid before when we got new toys or a new boombox. It was one of those things where he really wanted us to learn how to do this stuff, and so that we didn't have to come to him for how to update the drivers when the Windows PC for dial-up driver got knocked out every time we updated our computers. He's like, I'm tired of doing this. I want you to learn how to do it. And so that was something that was just instilled in me, that I loved knowing how the software worked. I liked knowing how my boombox worked so I can make a mixtape for my friend who's, trying to go out with this girl. And so that was the mindset that I had when getting an internship at a post-production studio in Santa Barbara. And I got my first Mac. I just started tearing into the help menus and learning how it all worked and writing little manuals for my friends and just kind of nerding out. I just enjoyed learning it, and that led to a job at the Apple Store and teaching people how to use their software and seeing them totally overwhelmed with big messes that they thought they'd get a new computer and a fresh start, and all of their mess just got transferred onto the new one, and it was a real disappointment. And a lot of people just froze up and needed help to get out from underneath that. And eventually I said, I'm going to start this because no one else is doing it. Here we are almost 11 years later.
Oh my goodness, Shawn, I feel like you're talking to all of us. If we're honest, we will admit to the fact that we've maybe got files and folders in places that we can't find. We've got emails coming out, the what's it, we have all of the things. And I guess this is just an interesting statistic for me. Tell us how much of a percentage of a computer people are not using on average.
I mean, probably 90% of it. I don't know that that's necessarily a problem because of thinking about the thousands and thousands of different tasks that these things can do, but what do we actually want to use it for? I don't know. That's one of those things that I definitely want you to know how to be efficient at it, but I don't think everyone needs to know absolutely everything about their computers if they're just not that interested in them.
I feel like we all need a friend like you. I've heard the statistics said that most of us only know how to use about 10% of the technology that we actually have.
If you're really into it, the best thing that you can do is spend an hour or so when you sign up for a new software, really looking at how are you supposed to use it. They'll try and take you through some videos, video walkthroughs of how you're supposed to use it. And that's really the training of not only how to use the software, but for project management, for example, they're actually teaching you how to do project management well through their help videos. Some of the most valuable time you can spend, and it's a huge return on the investment.
So you cut your teeth in Apple, and then what was the catalyst for you starting your own business?
Well, I grew up in a household with a small business, and so I was. That's kind of the lens that I looked through of being able to start my own thing. I really wanted to learn how business worked, and I loved helping people get organized. And I just saw a huge need, and it just kind of all coalesced. I said, I want to learn, I want to help, and let's go on this journey and see how it worked. Because I've been building up a side business, doing it at the Apple Store for about 6 years out of the 7 that I worked there, and it finally got to the point where I could leave, and there was plenty of demand for it. So yeah, I took the plunge and said, I'm going to do it.
That's always the interesting part of the journey, is that people say, well, did you jump, or did you, as you've said, build the business on the side?
Yeah, it was built up, and it got to the point where I had dropped to part-time at Apple, and then I was doing my side hustle, and I was making more from my side hustle than I could working full-time at Apple. And after going to a Tony Robbins business conference, I was all amped up and said, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. Look at the money I'm making over here. If I spend all my time doing that, what could I do? And of course, this is freelancing, and so it's not a straight line up and to the right. It goes up and down, but trends up and to the right as long as you're doing a good job. And it was trending, but I was at a high. Luckily, I had a little bit of Apple stock to keep me afloat while we were, through some of those lows. But eventually, we made it through and really stabilized. And yeah, it was not a jump in. It was a slow burn, and then finally trusting myself enough to just go for it.
And what would be your top tip for somebody who was juggling the job and the side hustle at the same time?
Watch for the highs and lows. Look at the trends of when you're busy and when you're not, and what those busy seasons are, because you're going to need to be able to keep yourself afloat when it's not quite as busy. And I would say hire someone as soon as possible to help you, sooner than you're probably comfortable with.
What kind of things are you helping your clients with when it comes to digital organization?
The majority of the people who find us are searching us because they're either drowning in email or files. And usually those things come in hand. Occasionally we have people coming for us for project management, but it's usually something's broken and I'm embarrassed. I've been dropping so many balls in email. I'm the bottleneck for my team. I got to figure this out because I can't find what I'm looking for fast enough.
And what would you say has been the biggest lesson that you've learned from the journey, from the fact that you see things in one way, your clients see them in another way? That's why they're coming to you. And what have you discovered in that process?
I would say that shiny object syndrome is probably the biggest culprit of people's disorganization. With technology, there is this expectation that it's going to solve all of the problems for us, and it's going to make things easier, and it's going to eliminate all of the friction. Well, it eliminates a lot of friction and eliminates the need for a lot of manual effort, but it still doesn't mean that it's all gone. And when it comes to using these tools, it's not so much about what the features are, but how we actually use them, of how we put it in play, because 90% of these tools have some sort of overlap. Like all of the project management, Asana, Trello, ClickUp, Rike, doesn't matter what project management tool you're using, 90% of it is overlap. They do the exact same thing, except they're trying to differentiate themselves with one key feature that Asana doesn't have, but ClickUp does, and hopefully they'll pull you into their platform instead. When usually those tiny little features are optimizations. The biggest thing that you can do is commit to one, consolidate everything to it, and learn how to use that one tool well.
Can you give us an example of a client that you've worked with recently?
I want to bring up Erin. She's a financial advisor. And so she is hustling. She's doing a great job. Her business is growing like crazy. And she is totally drowning in email and in files. And because she's having to jump between this thing called Redtail, it's a CRM that's actually horrible for what she's trying to do, but that's what her company makes her use. But then she's got her own email accounts as well. And then she's trying to store all these files for the clients and interact with a bunch of different tools. So the first thing that we did was get in and help her get on top of her email and actually make sure that things were working right, because technically there was some stuff wrong as well. A lot of times, actually, the organization isn't that hard, but we run into some sort of technical issue that the client doesn't understand. And that's really the bottleneck. And so being able to have someone come in and be able to solve those technical challenges, like making sure that the app that she wanted to use, she could actually get her email account funneled into it so that was useful for her. That took a bit of research for us to figure out, but then we were able to get her email account into a special type of app that enables her to respond to emails so much faster, use template, filter emails and stuff. And it's made her experience so much better, keeping track and staying on top of emails, because she was dropping a lot of balls. And then that paired up with files. So her files were a mess and she couldn't find what she was looking for and didn't have a good flow of what do I store in email and what do I store in my filing system, and then where do I store that in my task management as well. And so we were able to create a whole flow for her of email goes here, and this is how we're using this tool. This is where we put our files. This is how we use project management, kind of create those 3 dedicated spaces so that she could just let go of trying to do things the optimal way, because we already made that optimal way. And now she can just get to work.
That is fantastic. What would you say was the biggest quick win that you could find for a new client or for a client such as the one you just mentioned?
Probably the quickest win would be declare email bankruptcy and unsubscribe from the plethora of newsletters that you're getting. Declaring email bankruptcy doesn't mean deleting all of the emails. It just means getting them out of your inbox. A lot of people don't realize how much mental energy is being taken up by simply having so much stuff undone or not taken care of. And it may feel like I've got a lot of people, it's like, well, I've got 30,000 emails in my inbox, but they're all red. They're all marked as red. So, I just mark things as unread that haven't been dealt with, which is an imperfect system, but it's, works relatively well for some people. But then we say, as an experiment, why don't we just clear all of this stuff out and just see how it affects your life? And we clear it out. We, say everything after 30 days, we can get out of the inbox, and then let's process the last 30 days worth of unsubscribing from things, archiving things that are completed, and just leave the stuff in the inbox that needs to be dealt with. And now let's talk about triaging that. The next session, every time, oh my gosh, I had no idea how much my email was stressing me out. And I feel so much more calm now that I'm, in processing email, and feel more on top of it. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. By the way, I've got a newsletter sign up. I'm going to give you a resource library. I'm going to give you a file organization guide. We'll talk about that at the end. But when you sign up for it, I've got a couple introduction emails. The process of declaring email bankruptcy, getting rid of those subscriptions, and even doing some automations, I'm going to send you some videos about that so that you know exactly how to do that process for your own life if you want to take some action after this.
Just to clarify my understanding, when we're talking about email bankruptcy, we're talking about getting to inbox 0.
Yeah, ideally, that's what we're trying to do, is get to inbox 0. Now, staying at inbox 0 can be a challenge for some people because we can't always answer all of the emails in our inbox. Like, we don't either have the time or we don't have the information. What do we do about that stuff? That's usually what hangs people up and then gets them back into the cycle of just leaving stuff in their inbox again. And a simple solution for that is snoozing an email. You hit snooze and say, well, I should have the information to answer this email by Friday. So let's just send them a quick email and say, hey, I don't have the information on this yet, but I will on Friday. I'll touch base with you then. And then you snooze that email and then it pops right back into your inbox on Friday so that you can deal with it.
Am I hearing that your training is teaching your clients new processes and protocols so that they can live life with an email that serves them rather than them being the servant to it?
Absolutely. The whole point is to be in control, but this is more than just using an app. This is figuring out the tools in the thought process of how do I approach email? And it's understanding these are some different types of emails that I get. And there are different times that I should be addressing these things, sometimes right in the moment, sometimes later on the day. Maybe we want to create a chunk of time on our calendar to deal with certain types of requests that we get regularly that are not time sensitive. So those are the types of things that we're really wanting to work with our clients on beyond just cleaning things up. But how do we approach this so that we really feel on top of things and they don't slip through the cracks and we're not just spinning our wheels staring at email all day?
Because this is one of the big points that we tend to forget. Our job isn't to reply to emails, and yet replying to the emails is part of our job. So I love the fact that you are teaching your clients how to create a process so that they can do it more efficiently, do it more effectively without the overwhelm of seeing the red number at 50,000. Shawn, I think if I saw that, I'd have a heart attack.
Yeah, me too. I've luckily stayed on top of my stuff for a long time. I got on into this early, and I've just attacked a subscription like a rabid dog. When they come in, it's just, I see a new subscription, like, I didn't sign up for that. Unsubscribe. And I've got a 20-year-old Gmail account that's perfectly effective.
I was going to say, there's all sorts of little hacks and tricks and tips that I'm guessing you're teaching your clients. One of the ones that I use is a different email address that I sign up for things from to the email address that I use for work. And I'm sure that's one of the basic tips that you'll be teaching your clients. Talk to us about digital hoarding, because this is something that I'm absolutely fascinated by. We have houses full of stuff, and we are now starting to store digital content. And it's not something that we can clearly see in the same way that a house might be overflowing with stuff. Talk to us about it, and talk to us about the potential consequences of it as well.
Yeah, we've been encouraged to hoard emails and files and all this stuff because space is cheap. Dropbox, they'll give you two gigabytes of space for free, or maybe now it's 5 gigs for free. And then they try and say, hey, why don't you automatically back up your photos to Dropbox? Don't you want to keep them safe? Of course, who doesn't want to keep their photos safe? So you say, yes, back up my photos to Dropbox, but you don't realize you've got 60 gigs worth of photos. So you're going to blast through that free space, and then they're going to say, oh, you need to upgrade because you're out of space. Now, oh, someone wants to share something with you and you can't receive it because you need to buy more space. So a lot of people get sucked into that. It's made Dropbox millions and millions and millions of dollars by using this strategy. And Gmail does the same thing. Just archive things. Don't delete them. You know, there's no need. We've got a great search. It's true. But the more stuff we add to our search, the harder it is to find. Like the more things that are there, then the more we end up, the search engine finds things that we're not necessarily looking for. One of the things that just happens is we keep all of this stuff, we don't name it well, and it's getting lost. It's not that our hard drives are crashing like they used to. It's now things are just lost because we got 30 different versions because we can't find it, and spread out all over the place.
It sounds to me, in my observation of this, and as a user myself and working with my clients, obviously, that technology has overcome us and it's become very helpful. And sometimes it's helpful, and sometimes it's helpful in the disguise of help, which isn't actually helpful. When you start with a client who perhaps has been using one system for a number of years, has found another system, has learned something from a book, has learned something from a course, is sellotaping things together, let's say, is the first place that you are starting with helping them to mind map what their ideal outcome would be, and then recommending the best tools for the job?
The main thing that I want to always start with, and say if you were to book a discovery call with me, what I would start with is, why are we having the call? Like, what's wrong? Why is that a problem for you? Because some people, they can handle 30,000 emails in the inbox and handle it just fine, and it doesn't cause them stress, and they're performing just fine. And for someone else, is crippling. So what is it about it? What's working and what's not? What have you done in the past that has worked and what hasn't? Those are the types of things that we need to know to find out, why didn't that tool work? Why didn't this process work? And what do you feel most comfortable using? Another question is, if you're in business and you're working with other people, are you collaborating with them? Or is everyone else in your industry that you're sending things to using Google, but you're on Windows? Do we need to switch over to the Google platform to make it easier to work with everyone? So it's really trying to find out what's the best system for you based on your past experience and what you gravitate towards, because that is extremely important, of wanting to use a tool. That's bigger than most people realize. And then what is it that you really need? Then that is going to help inform us of what tool we should use and how we should approach going about organizing it or learning it based on your style.
And so say your client wasn't in the privileged position that they could actually influence the system and the tech. What would be the first quick win that you would recommend for them when it comes to frustration about, I'd rather be using this, but we have to use this?
I would say, I'm sorry that you don't have control over it. But the biggest thing is being able to find what you're looking for and use it well. So I would say, if you're used to using Google Drive and you're stuck using OneDrive, first thing that I would do, if you're already pretty organized, but it just can't do what you want, is try and learn more about it. I'd watch some YouTube videos. I would talk to a friend who really loves the tool to find out why, and try and learn more about it just to pique your interest, because there's probably some stuff that OneDrive can do that Google Drive can't, that might impress you. And a lot of times people think that Google Drive, for example, isn't as easy as using Dropbox because you can sync your Dropbox folder to your computer, but they don't realize you can actually do that with Google Drive as well. So sometimes I would say, just get curious and learn. If you don't have control, you're going to find some interesting things that will help you to have a better experience with it. Spend some time actually architecting out a little workspace so that you can find what you're looking for quickly.
It sounds to me, Shawn, like these systems are much of a muchness, but we're not fully aware of their true capabilities. Again, it comes back to the start of our conversation where we were talking about, we have this tech and we only use 10% of it.
Yeah, it's learning how it works is just one of the best things that you can do for yourself. And it doesn't take that much time. And if you don't like watching videos, yeah, ask a friend, book a call with me, a free call with me to talk about it and see if we could point you in the right direction and give you a resource, or maybe it's working with us. It's that curiosity that can really, really help to learn and just have a better experience.
What would you tell a professional who's overwhelmed by their emails? What's your first steps to help them to triage it?
The first thing would be, what email accounts do you have and why do you have them? What's working and what's not? So you have an email account that is set up for signing up for things, and then you have another email account that you want to use for communicating with people. So what's working and what's not? Well, if I hear there's actually some overlap there, so that's going to be one thing of realizing we haven't been diligent about signing up with everything with one account and the other. So what's working about that situation and not? Do we need to consolidate? Is it just not working having them separate because there's too many steps? Or do we just need to be more diligent in signing up under the different email account? And do we need to just go in and change some of those sign-ins real quick right now to take action? And then from there, I would say, let's declare email bankruptcy. Let's unsubscribe from things, because we need to stop the tide of just keep rising up and drowning us when, the marketers put on the gas, especially in this season around the holidays. A massive amount of marketing emails. We got to stop so that we can see what's good in our inbox. And then from there, look at your emails and triage them to say, what type of emails am I getting? And is there something that I can do to just stop receiving a lot of these messages that are time consuming. So I'll give you an example of that. If I want to stop an email in its tracks from just blowing up the inbox, we'll give an example of somebody emails you asking a quick question that is not a quick question. You're going to have 3 or 4 questions for them to answer in order to give the answer that they're looking for. That's not an email that I reply to with those 3 questions. I say, hey, this is best for us to have a call to discuss I think there's too many questions to answer this over email, and just shut it down right there and give them an option to book the call. So use the Google Calendar option to make a booking link for a 15-minute call. Send them that link so that they can book the call, and you can just deal with it over the phone real quick, or pick up the phone and call them. A lot of times that helps tremendously.
Let's do an example of a professional who has never been taught file organization. I was super lucky that I had a boss who told me how to structure my files, but so many conversations I have with people, they don't know. And I'm sure you experience this a lot. So what is the best place to start with that?
The best place to start with file organization is thinking about an actual filing cabinet. If we go back to your late teens, early 20s, when you got your first tax documents and it got mailed to you, you could just set it aside and put it somewhere in a folder. And then we got other documents, maybe insurance, our first insurance cards for our vehicles. Well, we can store that in a folder as well. But once we accumulate so many, we need to say, we should probably group some of these together. I'm going to create a folder specifically for my taxes and another one for insurance documents. And then we have some sort of health event, and then we start getting bills and we get x-rays or something. And so, well, maybe we need a folder for that. I want you to think about our digital files the exact same way. If you have a number of things that we need to keep that are related, maybe we should put those together. And I think of this more like we have general resources or records that we need to keep, like financial records. And then sometimes we have documents that we're creating that we need to keep that are a part of a project that we're working on. And so we're pulling from a lot of different resources to create something. So we usually keep projects grouped together. And then we keep a general resources group together. So I don't group just Word documents together or Excel documents together based on file type. It's more like, how are we actually going to access them and use them? For taxes, we save all of these documents and then we need to file them. So we need to access all of those documents for that 1 year. That's why we group those together. Even though it's a resource, it's actually a project as well, but we're going to leave it there and access it later. So that's the type of thing, is realizing we've got areas of responsibility and we have categories of things that we just need to keep for record later on down the road to reference. And then we need to create workspaces as well. And I outline this in that file organization guide. If you want to download that, it's actually going to be at thedigitalorganizer.com/TM podcast for time management podcast. I go through that whole thing of giving you examples of how to do that, how you would consolidate those files together, even file naming conventions of how I think you should name your files to make it really easy.
I love it. And we, as always, will leave all the links to everything in the show notes. You have no need to worry. File organization is such an incredible time-saving skill. If you know how to do it, it will totally transform your life. So definitely grab that free gift that Shawn was just talking about there. Tell us something you do with your time today that you don't think that other people do.
Protecting it a lot more. We've got a lot of different areas in our lives, our personal lives, just for our own sanity, of creating time for ourselves. It's time for our family, for our kids, time to maintain different things in our house and clean. And then there's time for work as well. And protecting the time that I have with my family and trying to create harmony between work and personal life, and also that time for myself, and really carving that out, of having pretty strong boundaries between them. I don't see as often with other people. It's the work bleeds a lot more into it. And And they kind of just take it for granted, especially other people asking them for things with instant communication like text messages and social media and email being on our phones. We're just giving up minutes and our attention all over the place. And that's one of the things that I really try and protect and say, I don't want to be notified when people are trying to contact me outside of these specific hours, and I want to be present right where I am, and it's time to turn off and be present somewhere else. And turning off those notifications to create more engagement is something that I would like to see a little bit more.
Fantastic. What's one top tip that you have for us as we're going into the new year when it comes to digital organization?
Figure out what you want to use for your primary tools this year and stick to them. Don't get pulled aside by the next new thing. If you get frustrated with your project management app and someone says, oh, you should switch to ClickUp, it's so much easier. There's a serious cost to switching from one software to another. And usually people don't fully commit to that process of getting everything over and then fully shutting down the old system. So you have stuff spread apart in two different places. And it's that sort of thing that really bogs us down, and just it feels like we're hitting red lights anytime we're trying to get somewhere when we're in a hurry. Take some time to think through what would be the best platform for your files. I actually talk about that in the file organization guide. And then decide that you're going to learn that and use it well and figure out how to use it well this year, because you can switch next year and you might find that you actually solved the problems and it really wasn't a problem with an app, but you not fully committing and just having everything in one place, you're frustrated at the wrong thing. Commit and allow yourself to just use one thing and to be a little bit inefficient for the sake of doing something consistently, because you will get so much more efficient when you use something efficiently or consistently. You will find other things to tweak, and all of a sudden you can really throw on the gas.
It sounds to me like you're saying if somebody wants to move house, they need to explore whether the house they're actually in is doing all of the things it could be doing. And then if they want to move to a new house, to explore the neighborhood, because sometimes that grass isn't greener. You just haven't watered the grass that you're actually on right now. And that, as you're saying, is such a big, big thing when it comes to tech, because moving from one system to another is simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah, and it can be time consuming. And you may have time this week, but then all of a sudden you get a few calls, some stuff happens, then you don't finish the process, and the next week is busy, and then the next week is busy, and you've lost momentum. There is the cost of moving and then learning that new system and fully setting it up is always more than people expect. And if you're going to do it and you're not so sure about it, you can always get help too from professionals or just colleagues who do it well. Schedule some time with them and make sure that you finish the process and get fully set up. And then it can really make a difference. But it's just taking some more time on that front end.
What's one question you haven't been asked that you'd like to have been asked?
How do I fix the two-step verification issue when working with a team? When we've got a team and they need to log into an account that you created, but it has two-step verification on it, then that text message is usually coming to your phone. And if you're not available, that person can't do their job. And it creates a lot of friction in the workplace or even at home when you're trying to share logins with someone in your household to not be able to get into the account. Everything just comes to a screeching halt. You cannot complete that task. So there are tools. The one that I like best is called 1Password, and it's a password manager where you can store your passwords. You can share them with other people if you want to. And you can also integrate the two-step verification code into the login so you don't get text messages. If you set up two-step verification for your Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, and you want someone to manage those for you, then you should share the logins with them via 1Password. And you'll set up the two-step verification code right in that login. So when someone has access to the password, they also have access to the two-step verification code. This is just brilliant for marketing teams, finance teams especially, and anyone who's really collaborating a lot in systems where they have to share logins. It can be extremely helpful. And I love it because if you travel, then you happen to get, and say you're in Argentina and you put an Argentinian SIM card in your phone, then you're not getting text to your other account. And Google's going to challenge you because you're trying to log in from a different IP address. They're like, we're going to send a text code. Well, you'd get locked out of your account unless you had your two-step verification codes going somewhere else.
That is an incredible top tip. And for the listener, if you haven't got two-step verification on your social media, if you're a business owner, on your website, on all platforms that it is available, please get onto that. And Shawn, that really, really is incredible once you start to get a team. And these are the things that you don't think about. So you protect yourself, but you don't fully know what will happen if the next step is there or not there. And yeah, when you're traveling, how do you cope with that? So thank you. That is such an incredible tip. What have you got coming up over the next 6 months, year?
We are launching a new product specifically for a certain restaurant chain in the US called Chick-fil-A. What we've realized is people need a whole back office system of how do you communicate via email or communicate with Slack using a file storage or service like Google Drive, keeping track of your project management, and how does communication, file storage, and project management all flow together. So we've created a whole system specifically for them, like we do for other businesses, but because it's a chain, it's pretty easy to sell to the other owners as well, because it makes a huge difference and it's a missing piece for them. So we love to do this for businesses with multi-locations, which is create a whole system tailored to their business so that we can replicate it for the rest of the different locations. That's the type of things, figuring out how do we create repeatable systems for businesses and individuals as well, but a lot of businesses.
And how can we connect with you or find you online?
The best place to do it is at thedigitalorganizer.com. And I think you should start by going to thedigitalorganizer.com/TM podcast so that you can get that file organization guide. And when you do that, we'll send you some emails introducing you to the company and what we do and how we do it. And some of that's sending those videos on email bankruptcy and stuff like that. So we started by just giving you a bunch of great resources. We can send you an email every Sunday giving you some stories and tips around getting digitally organized. That's just the perfect starting point.
Fantastic. Well, Shawn, I could talk to you all day about file organization and all of your top tips. Thank you so much for your time today and for all the insights and wisdom that you have shared with us.
Thanks for having me, Abigail.
And until next time, my friends, remember, stay safe, stay well, and it is your time. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you loved what you heard, be sure to let me know by leaving a review so I can keep the good stuff coming. Come and say hi on Instagram at Success by Design Training, or visit my website, successbydesigntraining.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search Abigail Barnes. Until next time, don't forget, you are amazing and it's your time.